Keys in database management system. Keys are the columns or attributes in the database. That is student ID, roll number, name, all of these are keys. They are classified into different categories. The first one is candidate keys. Candidate keys are the keys which can uniquely identify each and every element in the table. They must contain the unique data in it. There will be no duplicate data in the candidate keys, as well as they will never have the null value in it. Student ID, roll number, and email will act as candidate key in this particular table, because two different persons may have the same address, may have the same class, or even the same name, but they will never have the same email, same roll number, or same student ID. These data will always be unique for them. So it helps us to identify each and every data in the table. For an instance, let's take an example. If we have to find this particular area, that's area 1147. Okay, to which particular person this area belongs. Here you can see that again the same area is written here. So address table contains the duplicate data. So that means Mira and John have the same address. But which particular person belongs to this area can be determined by either roll number or student ID, or by their email. If roll number is 2, it's Mira. If roll number is 4, it's John. Okay. So candidate keys are student ID, roll number, and email. Now, primary key is the candidate key. It is the minimal set in the candidate key, and we always try the primary key to be as minimum as possible. And best is if it is single. Here we choose student ID as primary key. We can choose roll number or email as well. It's your choice. And one key is set for this particular table as primary key. If we have to find the name of a person who lives at this place, so we will determine it by their student ID. Now all the remaining keys in the candidate keys except the primary key are called as alternate or secondary keys. They are the candidate keys except the primary keys. If we choose student ID as primary key, then roll number and email will act as alternate keys. And here, if we choose roll number as primary key, then student ID and email will act as alternate keys. Composite keys. Composite keys are the combination of two or more than two keys which can uniquely identify any item in the table. Student ID and roll number combinedly forms the composite key. We can take roll number and name as composite key, and we may take roll number, name, and class as composite key. The two important conditions for the composite key are at least one candidate key it must have, and it should be a combination of two or more than two keys. Here you can see that we have three keys, but roll number is the candidate key. Then only it can identify the items in the database. Super keys. Super keys are the keys which can uniquely identify the data in the table, but they can be single, they can be double, and they can be any number of the keys. Here, roll number, name, and class, we took all of these three as super key, and it can be any number. Say student ID, roll number, and email. This can be a possibility of super key. Student ID and roll number can be a possibility, and even single student ID or roll number, they can be the super keys. Now the important conditions for the super keys are it must uniquely identify any data in a table, and it can be any number of the keys or the columns or attributes. And let us suppose for an instance, if we take address, name, and class. Address, name, and class, these three. So will they form a super key? No, they wouldn't form a super key, because address can be duplicate, name can be duplicate, and class, there also the data can be duplicate. So combination of these three may not be able to identify any data uniquely in the database. So that's why we can't take all of these three as super key. So it must have at least one candidate key in it. So the condition here is that at least one candidate key should be there, and it can be a combination of a single key or any number of the keys. So candidate keys are the super keys with the least number of the columns. Now, the difference between the super key and the composite key, both of these keys used to uniquely identify any data and help us to identify any data. But the difference lies in the combination. The super key can have a combination of single key, a double key, it may consist of three columns and more. And for composite key, it must start with the combination of the two columns, and then it may have the three and four and so on. Now, suppose we have two tables and the information about a student is stored in these two tables. The student's student ID, roll number, name, class, address, and email are in first table, whereas their parent's name and optional subject are in second table. So anytime if we have to check the optional subject or parent's name, so we have to refer to second table. But how do we map them? So for that, we need any column or key or attribute as common in between them. Here we choose student ID. Now these two tables are mapped, and this student ID is from table first. Now for table second, the student ID is foreign. So we will call it as foreign key. But remember the important thing here, this key must be able to uniquely identify any items in the table. That is why we didn't take name, class, address or any other key, but the student ID. Okay, we can take roll number because roll number is a candidate key, or we can take the email. Okay, so any candidate key can be taken as the foreign key. With the help of this foreign key, we would be able to get the data. Let us suppose if we have to know what is the father's name of Shadab and what is his optional subject. So we will look at his student ID, that is 103, and refer to the 103, and we see here his father's name is Hussain and he has the literature as his optional subject. Now the last one is, let us suppose if we have a table where we have three attributes, name, class, and address, and none of these can uniquely identify the data in the table. So basically there is no candidate key. And for such in tables, we introduce an external attribute or column, and let us suppose we give it a name serial number. And we know that no two serial number will be same, and neither it contains any null value. So this column is able to uniquely identify the data in the table. So this is an identifier, and as this was not previously or predefined in the table, we have introduced it externally, so we will call it surrogate key. And here is the hierarchical order. First, it is a super key because it can be a combination of single key or any number of the keys, and it uniquely identifies the data in the table. Then its subset is the candidate key, and in candidate key we choose one key as primary key, and if there are the combination of the keys, there's two or more than two, it will be a composite key, and remaining will be the alternate keys. And if required for an external table, we choose the foreign key, and it will be from the primary key or from composite key. And that was it. Next we will see the referential integrity.